Shout out to the rookies. Jalen Wells and Zach Edey have both been selected to the Castrol NBA Rising Stars game for rookies and second-year players. Both rookies have been phenomenal this season. Surprisingly, been staples in the starting lineup all year. Zach Edey, the 9th pick in the draft out of Purdue, putting up 9.7 rebounds and a block a game, second in the entire league in rebounds among the rookies and 4th in blocks. Jalen Wells, on the other hand, leads all rookies in several categories, including points and three-point percentage, and the second-round pick out of Wazoo, often guarding the other team's best player every night, which you just really don't see with a rookie pretty much ever. There'll be a special draft to see which Rising Stars team the pair will be on next week so they could actually face off against each other during All-Star Weekend. Cool honor.
Go hang out. Trip probably gonna be there. John's gonna be there. All the guys are gonna be there. So hang out with them, kick it, just have a good time.
It actually wasn't that exciting. I was getting my blood drawn for a life insurance exam, and I just happened to look over and see a notification. I was like, oh, pretty cool.
For rookies coming in, making a mark, their roles, doesn't matter what their minutes are, they're making an impact on both sides of the floor, and for them to get that recognition, I told them, you two guys are definitely rising stars in this league, and you're going to have fun out there, All-Star break, but what's the mentality going to be? They said, keep working, keep getting better, and I love those responses from those guys.
A very cool honor for Jalen Wells and for Zach Edey, something I think that it was not really a surprise for us at really any point of the season. Once you kind of get into that starting lineup and you have more opportunity than really anybody else in the league, I think it's really going to be very easy to slot them in there. But the impact that they've had on both sides of the floor for the Grizzlies this year cannot be understated. Zach Edey has stepped into that starting big man role. I think that's exactly what the Grizzlies were going to ask him to do when he got here. Hey, can you set screens? Can you play defense and defend the rim? Can you block shots? That's pretty much what he does, and that's what they've asked him to do, and I think he's filled that role pretty well. Still kind of finding his footing. Jalen Wells, I think, has been the surprise to everybody who's ever seen the Grizzlies at all this year. His ability to not only score, I mean, he is leading all rookies in points, but for him to come in, and we've seen him guard Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball and Steph Curry and some of these other guys, for him to come in and do that, his two-way impact is very similar to what we see with some of these other people around the league when we talk about rising all-stars, a la Jalen Williams, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, very similar. I think that his three-point shooting has really set him apart. Like, his defense obviously is great. I think that that's a little bit, I don't know how long that'll last. I hope it does. But it's kind of like when a young player is lighting it up offensively, teams start to get the tape on them. Similarly, on defense, you can kind of game plan against a guy like Jalen Wells. But what he's done so far this season is incredible. And I think it speaks to the Grizzlies organization as a whole. They found Jalen Wells. A lot of teams, I'm sure, they had him on the board, but they didn't go out and get him. If they knew that Jalen Wells had this potential, easily he could have gone on the first day. Easily. But the Grizzlies liked him. They like Cam Spencer as well. Cam Spencer's been a good player, even though he hasn't played that much this year. And then, of course, Zach Edey as well. It's a really smart organization, and it is epitomized by Zach Edey and Jalen Wells.
Hindsight's 20/20, right? Well, they didn't go get him. Well, nobody knew he was going to be anything like this, Rachel.
And I doubt the Grizzlies, yes, it was a great pick by them, but I doubt that they even thought that he had this under his belt this quickly. I'm sure they thought he'd grow in and develop into a great player, but to do what he's done so quickly, no one really saw it coming. And yeah, I'm not surprised that he's on the Rising Star All-Stars team, but if you told me that when he was getting drafted that he'd be on that team, heck no, not at all. And that's no shade on him. I think he would probably even be like, yeah, I'm not surprised that no one thought I would be. I'm sure he always thought he would be because he's always had that underdog mentality. I'm going to prove to you that I deserve this spot, and we've seen it his entire career up until now, and I think we're going to continue to see it. I cannot help but laugh at where he was when he found out. He's the most
responsible.
He's the most
Jalen
mild-mannered human. He's just so cool, calm, collected, never too high, never too low, as we love to hear and say about athletes all the time. But he's truly the definition of that. Yes, in a life insurance office, getting his blood tested. Sir, you should be,
Getting shots up, playing video games. I don't know.
What are you doing? Come on. I love it. It epitomizes him. He's just so cool, calm, collected on the court and also off of it. And yeah, awesome achievement for him.
I think it's so funny that with these rookies, they're like a far cry from what Gigi Jackson was a year ago, right? As a rookie, Gigi still the youngest person on the team, but just so energetic, very comedic, very gregarious. He's going to talk a whole lot. And then you get into this draft class, and you have Zach Edey and Jalen Wells, and they're just so businesslike, so professional. You know, you don't get a whole lot out of Zach Edey whenever we talk to him. You think this is like the biggest accomplishment he's had all year. We got like 20 words out of him about it.
Tripp's
you know?
gonna be there.
Yeah.
It'll be pretty cool. San Francisco,
Right.
Yeah,
He's
it's no, dude.
we're trying to get plans out of him. He's talking about, my mom will be there. That'll be cool.
Yeah.
You know
And I'm
what
sure
I mean?
behind the scenes he's like, oh
I'm
my
sure,
god,
yeah,
I
he's
can't
feeling
believe
it,
this
of
is so
course.
cool. Yeah.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that they get more excitement out of him, than we see for sure.
Yeah, that's funny. Jalen especially. So that what happens with this particular Rising Star game, much like last year, they will kind of mix the All-Star teams up, right? So it'll be rookies and sophomores, but it'll be a combination of 4 different teams. They'll play like a mini tournament this year, which is pretty cool. And so what could actually happen is they could play against each other, which I think would be really funny. And we talked to Jalen Wells. He said, well, I'd love for us to be on the same team, but if we don't, I might have to try and dunk on Zach Edey. Rachel, do you think Jalen Wells is going to dunk off on Zach Edey at 7'4"?
Here's the thing. Jalen Wells has surprised us all this entire season.
Yeah, fair.
So I wouldn't actually be surprised. Do I think he should do it? No. But, hey, go have some fun out there. It's All-Star Weekend.
Similarly, John Morant said he wanted to dunk on Jaren in an All-Star game. Do you see Jalen Wells dunking on Zach Edey?
Yeah, I think he could do it. Why not? I think all of these guys have hops that are bigger than we actually expect to see. Have we seen Wells dunk in a game?
Yeah.
I feel like
we have.
We've
Yeah.
never seen him cock one back.
Okay.
He's always, somebody described it on Twitter. I put the tweet out.
Last game.
Somebody
That home game
described
he
it on Twitter as he's got bunny hops, little bunny hops, not like hops. So I think
He can
that'll be
find the
really
hops if
funny.
he needs them.
He doesn't have the posterizer build though, but
Was this 2K?
Yeah, I don't know if you could. You'd have to get Edey on the side. It would have to be. It wouldn't be a poster. It would be Edey kind of on the side where he's like, "Oh no, Jalen's coming at me. I got to make a business decision real quick because I can't get dunked on right now because you'll never hear the end of it in the locker room."
Yeah, 100%.
And there will be a poster in the locker room or something or a video replayed over and over. So yeah, most likely not. But if it does happen, Edey's going to get to the side a little bit.
I think if Jalen Wells were to get a dunk off on Edey, it would have to be like he's surprising Zach. You know what I'm saying? Like he gets a quick one and he just rises up and Zach's like, oh, like you're actually doing this. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna give it. I'm not like you said. Jalen Wells has done nothing but surprise us all year. If he gets one off on Zach, I would be shocked, maybe not surprised because he's so good. So yeah, that game will be on the Friday before. Or the Friday of All-Star Weekend, February the 14th. But Wells and Edey aren't the only ones headed to Cali. Members of the Memphis Hustle are also stamped as G League All-Stars. Fan favorite Yuki Kawamura, Armando Baycott, DJ Stewart, and Malzina Pereira all selected to the G League Up Next game. That'll be on Sunday in the Moscone Center in San Francisco. Congrats to all the G League All-Stars as well. So what we got to talk about here coming up, though, is the actual All-Star game will be, the reserve announcements will be tonight at 5:30. And so what we'll have to actually going to discuss here on the show is the pool of All-Star players for the West Reserves. We're only going to do the West Reserves because for the sake of brevity, but these are the front court players. Alperen Sengun, Victor Wembanyama, Jalen Williams, Jaren Jackson Jr., Anthony Davis, Domantas Sabonis, and Andrew Wiggins. For the guards, Luka Doncic, and Edwards, Kyrie Irving, Ja Morant, James Harden, De'Aaron Fox, and Devin Booker and Norman Powell of the Los Angeles Clippers. So, for the sake of brevity, we will only do the West All-Stars because we could be here all day. We try to go both ways, but we got to figure this out. Do the Grizzlies make the All-Star team one of them? Rachel, I'm going to start with you. Mm-hmm. Who's on your All-Star reserve team?
Okay, I'm going to start out by saying no matter which way you look at this, no matter how you slice or dice it, there are people that are missing out on this All-Star team that probably should be on it, or you could make a case where there's just not enough people purely that are available to go on.
I think we would agree with that statement. That is a correct
So the
statement.
way I did this then was to put down who I thought had to be on there and then kind of elimination from there. So for me, Anthony Edwards is taking one of those guard spots for sure. Victor Wembanyama taking one of the front court spots. Anthony Davis as well. I've got Jaren Jackson Jr. on there for sure as a wild card. I don't think he gets a front court spot, but he's a wild card for me. So then from there I go, okay, who am I keeping on? Kyrie Irving was my other guard that I went with. Then I've got Sengun as well, and then Sabonis. They were my round out picks for my All-Stars. But Jaren Jackson Jr., I think, has to be on there, in my opinion. It's the same with Şengün. I think the Rockets and Grizzlies are so high up. I think you got to allow winning to take precedent and give them that bonus, because without them, their teams are not where they are right now in the standings. So I think that's a big reason why both those guys should be.
In kind of a head-to-head, I mean, Alperen Şengün's got the one-up on Jaren, right? The Rockets are 3-0 against the Grizzlies this year. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Caleb, who's on your All-Star reserves list?
Well, you have to look at someone like Luka Doncic, right? He's probably not going to play.
Yeah.
So he would be an
Also missed more than half of his team's games
Yeah.
this year. So I think Luka's probably a tough one to add.
Yeah, Luka's probably a tough one, averaging 28 points per game. I don't know. I mean, Kyrie Irving has played so well in his absence. There have been 3 games where he's played terribly, and I feel like they've kind of flagged him. Some people have kind of flagged him for that. But for the most part, he's averaging 24 points per game, and so I've got to put him in there in the backcourt. And then, of course, Anthony Edwards as well, the other one in the backcourt. Front court, Wemby, AD, and then I have Sabonis as well, and Jaren Jackson and Şengün as my wild cards.
Okay, so you guys are
Oh,
on
we got
one
the
accord.
same.
Yeah, we got the same.
Wow. And we didn't, by the way, for everyone watching, there was no communication between us as to who we were going with. This was completely...
I had someone.
You had to keep it secret, for
Yeah.
sure.
I had Jalen Williams, and I scratched out his name, as you could see right here. Jalen Williams
they can't
was
see
on
that. I was
there.
like, yeah.
Jalen Williams was on there. But I decided to scratch him off and put Şengün. I don't know if you could see. I got terrible handwriting. Here, I'll circle it for you.
Your chicken scratch, for sure. On my list, I have Victor Wembanyama, Anthony Davis, Domantas Sabonis, Ant Edwards, Kyrie Irving, Jaren Jackson Jr., and I actually gave Jalen Williams the nod.
Oh.
Because I'm giving. Okay, listen to my rationale. Hold on. First of all, the fact that y'all agreed on anything, I'm incredibly surprised by, because y'all don't agree on nothing.
Elite ball knowledge.
Elite ball knowledge. All right, whatever. Both Jackson Jr. and Jalen Williams are my wild card picks, right? I think you got to make the case for them, both because what they do, they have some of the best two-way impact in the NBA on both sides of the ball. Jalen Williams' stats this year: 21 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.8 steals. He is, in a lot of cases, going to guard the other team's best player, much like we talk about Jalen Wells will do for this team. But for me, because the Thunder are so far ahead in terms of the West, being first where they are, I think they're 6.5, 7 games between them and the Houston Rockets. That's where I felt like that's deserving of giving a two-way star. I think Jalen Williams is very similar to like what we talk about with Desmond Bane, where he's incredible offensively, but they're actually better. They have a positive net rating when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is not on the floor. And so that's where I'm like, okay, that means Jalen Williams is taking on the brunt of the load when Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is not on the floor. SGA's been phenomenal this year, probably their best player. As the second best player on that team, he has been really, really good. Jaren Jackson Jr., in the same vein, one of the best two-way players in the league. He may not put up the gaudy stats that some of these other guys may put up offensively, but I think when you watch it, he's been so good every single year or every single game this season. Defensive player of the Western Conference Player of the Week this past week. I think he's been so good. I don't know how you can leave him off. I agree. I had Kyrie Irving in mind. I was kind of a toss-up between him and maybe Norman Powell, simply because the Clippers have been so good this year, and Norman Powell's probably been their best scorer. But for me, Kyrie Irving keeping the Mavs afloat with no Luka Doncic, I just think he's been so good for so long. He kind of gets that legacy nod a little bit. You're gonna laugh at 24 points, 4 assists, and 41% from 3, but they're 10-7. Got a winning record with just Kyrie there in the Irving. Kyrie there in the lineup, not the Irving. I think
Kyrie's
like
got to make it.
You think so?
Yeah, I think Kyrie's got to make it. You look at someone like Devin Booker, or was De'Aaron Fox in that pool? Is he not? Yeah. You could make a case for either of them. Their stats are very similar. I think Devin's like at 24 points per game.
Yeah.
De'Aaron's around that as well.
Booker's at 25, actually. 25
Booker's
and a
at
half.
25. Okay. I'm not sure what Fox is, but Fox is close. And so you could make a case. But I think everything going on with Fox right now, it probably affects that in some type
It's
of
the
way.
coaches who vote, though, for the reserves.
Yeah, I just feel like just with the way the NBA works, like something could be going on there. And maybe that plays into it a little bit. I'm talking about the trade rumors around De'Aaron. Devin, I just think that he hasn't – the Suns have been kind of let down a little bit this year. He's been inconsistent through stretches. Recently, he's been really good. Kyrie's been inconsistent as well, but I think with Luka being out, you got to think like all-stars are a mix of MVPs, most valuable players for their teams. That's typically how it works. And so far this season, Kyrie slightly edges out Luka for the MVP of the Mavs just because he's played more games. He's had to fill in that void with Luka being out. Teams game plan against him, and he's still able to get buckets. So, yeah, I think that it's close. For me, Şengün getting the nod over Jalen Williams is because the Rockets have been so good this year.
Gotta reward the winning.
He's been their best player. I mean, you've seen Memphis fans. You've seen what he's done to the Grizzlies.
3 times.
Yeah,
3 times.
Yeah, 3 times. Absolutely, he's destroyed them every single time. He is borderline unguardable, whereas Jalen Williams. It's very close.
Yeah.
I like Jalen Williams.
It's a toss-up.
lot.
It's easily a toss-up.
I can't really make a case against Jalen Williams. But earlier today, you were not having
What did I say?
Jalen Williams.
I mean, I think you go back and look through it. It could be a toss-up. I agree that Şengün is certainly worthy of being an all-star. I think anybody in that reserves pool list is worthy of being an all-star. Like, at first I was like, Sabonis, really? But then you look at how good he's been. It's like, how do you leave him off? The only knock you have against him is that the Kings aren't really playing that well. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was kind of where I leaned when I left off of Devin Booker, right? Over there, 9th in the West right now. It's like, your team is good. You got KD there. So you have some Phoenix representation. But some of these other, it's really hard. The West is like, it's a gauntlet in terms of really good players. I think if we decided to do the East, we'd probably all agree like the East is pretty easy, but
We were pretty similar though. Like realistically, the 3 of our.
I am
teams.
shocked that y'all are on one accord. I thought
I
it
don't
was
really disagree on NBA stuff. Except I tricked all of y'all. Andrew Wiggins over Alfred Şengün.
Absolutely not.
No, I'm just kidding. But Andrew Wiggins, borderline all-star. The Warriors haven't been good this season, and partially that is because Andrew Wiggins and turnovers and bad shooting percentage in some games. But Andrew
Get on your
Wiggins,
soapbox over there, mate.
borderline all-star. I just want to say that. Andrew Wiggins, the only name not mentioned out of everybody. So.
Including you, who's
Including you.
it's
That's
your
your team.
team.
Yeah.
No,
If
I'm
anyone's
saying
gonna
throughout
roll, it's meant to
yeah.
No, I'm not saying go our list. I'm saying throughout this whole discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what I think we're finding within this discussion is that there's always going to be somebody left off. I mean, this happens pretty much every year, but LeBron, KD, and Steph still being starters on the All-Star team in the West. They're all 35 years or older. It's kind of like I'm not kind of that kind of person that's gonna be like, oh, they need to ride off into the sunset and give somebody else a chance. But nobody else is going to get a chance
until they're done.
until they decide that they're done and they're still playing so well. They're getting fan vote because of their legacies in the league, but they've all been playing so well that it's like you can't even really give them a knock. You could maybe put them in the reserve pool, but the way they've played this year, certainly deserving of being all-star starters, and we're not going to see anybody else. We got to talk